Last month, I had the amazing opportunity to speak at Ken Joslin's Create Conference about how to become the healthiest version of yourself amidst the chaos of life. The conference was filled with people who are hungry to grow in all areas of life, their health, their faith, finances, career, and relationships, and I was honored to be the expert guest speaker in the health area of life. And I wanted to share my speech with y'all as episode number 600 of the Best You podcast. I thought this would be a special way for me to pay tribute to y'all, the listeners of the Best You podcast and the Best You community. I started this podcast back in October of 2018 and have since recorded and released at least one episode and usually 2 episodes every single week. This podcast has allowed me to increasingly find my voice, find my expertise, and continually grow in my passion for personal development and health and fitness. Thank you guys so much for being with me over these last 5.5 years. It truly means the world that you tune in every single week to learn how to get closer to your best you. And if you're new here, please subscribe. My name is Nick Carrier, and I'm an entrepreneur and body optimization coach, and I've coached over 600 people through our program, the 10-Week Transformation. I continue to promise to show up week in and week out with education and motivation to keep you progressing on your health and fitness journey. This speech of mine was one of the first of hopefully many to come on a big stage in front of a big crowd. I hope you enjoy listening to the speech as much as I enjoyed giving it. 600 episodes down, baby. Here's to 600 more and counting. Here's to getting closer to your best you with the speech that I gave at Ken Joslin's Create Conference just last month. I hope you enjoy it.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's what I want you to do. If you are seated, I want you to stand to your feet really, really quick, and I want you to do me a favor. I want you to give a big round of applause and a shout to my guy all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, Nick Carrier. Come on, guys.
Let's do it, baby. All right. Welcome. How's everybody doing? So I'm going to talk about a little bit less sexy of a topic than stem cell research, but that was absolutely fascinating. I got a chance to talk to them this morning, and that's super fascinating. But today we're really going to talk about how to become the healthiest version of yourself while you're still trying to do all of these other things in other areas of your life. How do we become the healthiest version of ourselves when we're building a business, when we're maybe raising kids, when we're trying to build a family, when we're trying to build our net worth? Because all of that stuff to juggle all at one time is pretty damn difficult. I'm not gonna lie, it's so difficult to juggle all these different other areas of life, and that oftentimes causes us to push health to the back seat. It causes us to push health to the back burner, and oftentimes, this is how people's calendar year goes. They think, okay, it's January, I'm gonna really get on it this year. I'm gonna become a new version of myself at the beginning of this year, but then it's kind of cold outside, so once it starts to warm up, then I'm really gonna get out there, and then I'm really gonna get going. And then spring break comes around, and we go out of town, and the kids are kind of going crazy, and then it's tax season, but after that starts, then I'm really gonna have plenty of time to get after it and go to the gym, and then it's summer vacation, and we're traveling a lot, and the kids are kind of crazy with summer camp, and once they go back to school, then I'm going to have a whole lot more time where I can really get after it. And then it's back to school, and it's fall, and it's football season, and we're staying up late, and we're not as motivated, and we're tired in the morning, but like once football season's over, man, I'm going to really get after it. And then it's holiday season again, and man, we're traveling a lot, and we're having to get gifts for our family and friends, but man, when it's the new year, then I'm really going to get back to it, and I'm going to become a new version of me. And then it's cyclical year after year after year. And here's the thing. Becoming the healthiest version of yourself is not a matter of time. And you guys know that. It's a matter of priority. Raise your hand if you've ever used the excuse that I don't have time about anything. You're lying if you don't raise your hand. So many of us use the excuse that I don't have time. I have tried to eliminate that phrase out of my vocabulary. Sometimes if I say it, I try to hold myself back, and I switch the phrase to, it's not that I don't have the time. Maybe right now I'm not willing to prioritize the time, but it's really important to accept the fact that it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of priority. So first thing I want to touch on today is, why do we need to make health a top priority? You see, in order to build a strong why, there's going to be 3 different things. And I have a client right now who's 42 years old. He is married, building a business. He's got 3 young kids, 5, 7, and 9. And when he first came to me, he described himself as somebody who is inconsistently consistent. Can anybody relate with that, inconsistently consistent with their health. And he had been somebody who would go on extreme fitness programs or extreme diet programs and see some results, but then it'd be always constantly up and down. And at this point, about a year ago when he approached me, his pants were starting to fit a little bit tighter. You know, his shirt was fitting a little bit more snug around his love handles, and he was like, I am not buying new clothes. I have got to find a way to get this weight off. And so I was like, I know your motivation is about your belt loop right now, but let's try to dive a little bit deeper. Like, talk to me about your long-term health and fitness goals. What does that really look like? And he started off by talking about his kids. He has girls 5, 7, and 9, and he was like, I want to be able to live the rest of my life actively engaged with them. Because when I feel like crap, all I want to do is sit on the couch. The last thing I want to do is get up and play with them. Even though I might want to, I don't have the energy to do it. And he says, I want to live in an emotional, connective way with them as they get older. And then he starts to tell me about his parents. He says his mom has already had gastric bypass surgery. He said his dad's 74 years old and has constantly battled with his weight. And he's at a point where he's really just given up, and he's thrown in the white flag. And it's really sad to see that he's kind of just given up on things. And then he also talked about, I'm 42 years old right now, but I have a vision for what I want my life to look like when I'm 50 and 60 years old. And I am not going to get there with my current level of habits. I know I've got to change. And so I was like, oh, hey, this is great. Like the belt loop, that's good momentary motivation, but you need deep-seated motivation in order to lead to long-lasting perseverance. So I was like, let's encapsulate all of those things into a few sentences. And here's what he came up with for his why. My program is called the 10-Week Transformation, the 10WT. And he goes, I'm doing the 10WT because I want to develop a holistic skill set to setting and maintaining a healthy, sustainable, and consistent approach in all facets of my life. I want this because I want to avoid being overweight, unhealthy, unhappy, and unsatisfied when I'm older. There are a lot of things that I still want to achieve and a vision I have for myself when I'm 50 and 60, and I'm just not going to get there at my current standard operating procedures. I want to be the type of person that has the energy, focus, and emotional connectivity to live a life where I'm able to fully engage with those that I love and provide for. That is something that will get you going and light a fire under your butt when you wake up in the morning. And so there's 3 things in order to build out the most impactful why. I'm talking about a why that is going to get you through the tough times. That's going to get you through the times where you're mentally, physically, and emotionally drained. And by the end of this session, I want you guys to be able to come up with what your why is. The first thing that we need to define is, what do we want to avoid? What do we not want to have happen? Now, it's not really that sexy of a topic or sexy thing to think about, of all the unhealthy things that could potentially be in my future. You know, he talked about how his mom had gastric bypass surgery. His dad has always struggled with his weight, and he does not want that to be his story. And having that as part of his why is super important, because when you have a clear picture of what it is that you want to avoid, then it provides you with a sense of urgency in order to take action. But look, if we only have that fear-based motivation and that urgency to take action, we're going to drive ourselves right into a ditch. So we need the second part. What do we want to have happen? Who do we want to become? What do we want to achieve? And when we have that clearer picture of being that somebody who can provide both financially and emotionally for our kids and our future grandkids, that's going to provide you with the direction in order to go, and using and fueling with that urgency. So 1, what do you want to avoid? 2, who do you want to become? And then 3, and finally, is who are you doing this for? Now look, every single one of you on your health journey, you are doing it for yourself. Don't get me wrong. You are doing it so you can have more energy, so you can have more confidence, and you can get closer to the best version of yourself. But in my experience, that's not going to be enough to get you through the tough times. You're going to need to leverage that 5, 7, and 9-year-old girl in your life in order to push you through. I saw Patrick ask how many people are parents out here. Raise your hand again if you're parents out here. Leverage your love for your young ones in order to get your butt out of bed and get to the gym, in order to not order Uber Eats and make yourself a homemade dinner with your kids. Because while your kids might hear what you say, it might just go in one ear and out the other, they will do what you do. I cringe when I make the dad jokes that I make sometimes, because I do what my dad always does. And so if you can define what you want to avoid, that'll provide you with urgency to take action. but you need a clear picture of who you want to become so you can move in the right direction. And then you want to define who you're doing it for, because you have the ability to positively impact your friends, your family, your coworkers, your peers, and other people in your community. So that's why we need to make health and fitness a priority. Now, what specifically do we need to do? I'm going to get into some tangible things here with fitness and nutrition, and I'm going to start off from the fitness side of things. When we think about the healthiest version of ourselves, we want to think about what does that actually mean for us? And for every single person, it's actually about the same thing. So I want to look good, feel good, and play good. Now, look good, feel good, and play good for all of us is going to be a little bit different. Some of us might look like him and want to look like him, but some of us are like, okay, I am not going and willing to do that. Some of us might just want to be confident enough to get undressed in front of our spouse, right? So look good is going to be different for each of us. Same thing with feel good and play good. We all want to have energy. We all want to have confidence. Some of us might want to run marathons. Some of us might just care about playing pickleball and playing golf and being active with our kids and being able to throw batting practice to our son or our daughter. And so we need to look good and feel good and play good. So how do we actually get there? Well, there's really a whole lot of different fitness things that you can do in order to get there, but I want to give you guys a simple and repeatable game plan that is an option for you to apply in your life in order to look good, feel good, and play good. From the fitness side of things, first off, resistance training. Resistance training 2, 3, 4 times a week for 30, 45, or 60 minutes is key. Now, I think oftentimes when people think resistance training, they think him. They think, that's only for people who want to have really big muscles. And of course, that's going to allow you to look good if you're looking for more muscle tone, but that's grossly understating the benefits that resistance training provides. Yes, it allows you to build muscle, which is the most metabolically active organ in your body. Muscle is a glucose storage facility and a glucose storage sink. So when we eat food and it gets turned into glucose for energy, that energy is either used for energy in the moment, for activity in the moment. It might be stored in the muscle as muscle glycogen for use later on, or it might get stored as body fat. And if we have more muscle, it gets burned for more energy in the moment, and we're going to have a faster metabolism and feel a whole lot better as well. So muscle obviously looks good if we want muscle tone. It allows for us to have a faster metabolism. Resistance training is also key, obviously, to maintain independence as we age. We all have heard that we lose muscle mass as we age, and that's true. For every year after 40, the average American loses 1% of muscle mass, but you also lose 2 to 4% of strength, and you also lose 8 to 10% of power. And if you're losing muscle mass, then your metabolism is coming down. If you're losing strength, you're losing the ability to do the things that you really want to do. And if you're losing power, then you're leaving yourself more susceptible to injury as you age. And we all know how detrimental an injury might be as we get older. And that brings me to the next point, is resistance training is arguably the most important thing in order to build your bone mineral density. Now, for those of us sitting here who are maybe in our 30s, 40s, and maybe 50s, bone mineral density doesn't sound like a sexy topic. Ooh, I'm going to set a fitness goal so I can build up my bones and make my bones stronger. But it is super important. So to give you a brief overview on how it works, when you're ages 0 to 25, that's when you're kind of laying the foundation of how strong your bones are. When you're 25 to 50, for the most part, that bone mineral density and strength plateaus. Then when we're after 50, for guys, it gradually declines. For women, it severely declines throughout menopause and after menopause. And so we want to make sure we fight off, especially women, things like osteopenia and osteoporosis. If you're older than 65 years old and you break your hip, your 1-year morbidity rate, this is super positive, is 30 to 40%. That means if you're older than 65 years old and you break your hip, there's a 30 to 40% chance that you're dead in under a year. Again, I know, super positive, but hopefully that gives you a picture of something you might want to avoid in the future, and maybe they can help out with some stem cell stuff as well. But bone mineral density is another key to resistance training. So if we can resistance train 2, 3, 4 times a week, maybe some lower body, upper body, and full body work, then that's going to be absolutely critical to looking, feeling, and performing the way you want to look, feel, and perform. The next part of training is obviously cardiovascular training. Now, VO2 max is essentially the total amount of oxygen that your body can take in, absorb, and use during exercise. And VO2 max is also one of the highest correlated numbers and predictors of your lifespan. And so in order to improve our VO2 max, one of the easiest ways, or easy, it's not easy, it's definitely hard, is interval training. The idea of getting your heart rate up to 85, 90% of your max for maybe 1 to 3 minutes, and then recovering for 1 to 3 minutes and putting that on repeat. And I want to give you just a super simple blueprint if you guys are looking for a way to apply this interval training. Is a 30-minute plan to really do good interval training to elevate that VO2 max. You can start off with a 5-minute warm-up. That could be a walk or a jog, and you can do this on a treadmill, you can do this outside, you can do this on a rower, on a skier, on a bike, whatever works best for you to get your heart rate up. You can do a 5-minute warm-up, then you can do 10 rounds of a 45-second sprint where you're getting after it and you're getting that heart rate elevated, and then a 90-second recovery. So a 1 to 2 work to rest ratio. And if you do 10 rounds of that, and then just a little 2.5-minute cool down, that'll get you 30 minutes. And if we can do that just one time a week, that's gonna bring us a long way to elevate our VO2 max, which just allows us to perform better and longer throughout our life. And it allows us to make sure that we don't lose our breath as we're climbing up flights of stairs, etc. The second part of cardiovascular training is more steady state exercise training, where you're having your heart rate at a little bit lower percentage of your max, maybe 60 to 80% of your max heart rate. And if we can do that, again, 20, 30, 45, up to 90 minutes or so per week, then you're gonna increase what's called your stroke volume. Now, your stroke volume is the amount of blood that gets pumped from the left ventricle of your heart to the rest of your body per beat that it takes. And so if you have a healthy, strong, more efficient heart, you actually are gonna move more blood per beat. Therefore, your heart needs to beat less. And if it beats less per minute of every single hour, of every single day, of every single year for the rest of your life, then your heart is not working in excess. So if we can increase and improve our VO2 max by doing interval training, if we can improve our stroke volume by doing some steady state exercise, that's also gonna bring us a long way. So we got resistance training and cardiovascular training. We also just wanna make sure we're generally staying physically active. If we can maybe walk 8,000 plus steps a day, if we can play, again, pickleball, play golf, do hiking, have fun with it, just go outside and play with your kids. If we can just be more active on a regular basis, that is huge in order to keep up our metabolism, because one of the highest leverage things that we get to pull in order to keep our metabolism fast, number one is making sure we have enough muscle mass, and number two is something that's called NEAT, N-E-A-T. It stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is basically the activity that you're doing on a regular basis in order to just walk around and live out your daily life. And that accounts for anywhere between 15 and 50% of the total calories that you're burning on a daily basis. And so if we can do resistance training, some cardiovascular training, and then generally staying active on a regular basis, that's gonna take us a long way on the fitness side of things in order to look, feel, and perform the way we wanna look, feel, and perform. Now, again, from the nutrition side of things, I wanna try to keep things relatively simple because I think complexity is the enemy of execution. I think there's so much noise out there with regards to what is right with nutrition. And sometimes what's right for you isn't what's right for me. What's right for her isn't what's right for him. And so we wanna make sure that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Don't listen to one person and think that is the holy grail of all things nutrition. But what I wanna give to you guys today is a couple of foundational principles that work for 90+% of people. Number one is simple: eat close to the source. And what that means is simply eat real food. It means eat the apple, not the applesauce or the apple juice. Stay in the produce section. When you're eating broccoli, you're eating broccoli. When you're having a banana and a potato, you're having a banana and a potato. If you're eating a Pop-Tart, I couldn't tell you what you're eating if you looked at the ingredients label. If we can stay as close to the source as possible, 80 to 90% of the time, that's gonna take us a long way. And then to dive into maybe some more specifics, number two, stay close to the source. Number two is eat high quality protein. Now, a lot of times the conversation around protein stops at quantity, but we really wanna make sure we're concerned with high quality as well. When it comes to high quality protein, animal products might be grass-fed beef, pasture-raised chicken and eggs, wild-caught fish, ground turkey, edamame, yogurt, cottage cheese, rice, quinoa, lentils, beans, just to name a few. And if we can have anywhere, just to give you guys a number and a framework to work off of, if we can have anywhere from 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight per day, that's going to bring you a long way. Protein is always going to make sure you maintain and build the muscle that you have for all the benefits we've previously discussed. It's also going to make sure that you're staying highly satiated, highly full after your meals, therefore preventing you from overeating on unhealthy snacks and sweets. So again, protein about 0.7 to 1 gram per day per pound of your ideal body weight. I'm 165 pounds. That means for me about 115 to 165 grams of protein today. And then third and finally is fuel with fiber. I think fiber is arguably one of the most important things that you can focus on in order to improve your health. It aids in digestion. It helps improve your gut microbiome, which is important for your immune health and your brain health. It helps to keep you full. It helps to lower your unhealthy cholesterol. And if we can aim to eat 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day, then it's going to help all of those things. But it's also really important because of what it does in preventing us from eating the unhealthy foods. Because processed foods, refined foods, are basically completely stripped of their fiber content. And so if you're focusing on hitting that 25 to 35 grams, you basically can't eat anything unhealthy. If you're focused on simply hitting your protein goals, then you can go to McDonald's and order a Big Mac and maybe hit your protein goals, but is that going to be the best thing for you? Probably not. So if we can eat close to the source, prioritize high quality protein, and fuel with fiber, you are going to go so far on your nutrition journey. So we've talked about why to make it a priority, what specifically to make a priority. Now I kind of really want to finish with the approach in order to allow it to stay as a priority as you go throughout your life. You know, I'm a fitness trainer and I coach people specifically on a goal-setting framework, specifically to set a particular goal and attain that goal in a particular period of time. And because I coach people to do that, I want to do that myself. So this year, just last month, I finished 5th in a 30A half marathon last month. Last year, I hit a personal record on my bench press and my back squat. And the year before that, I wanted to see how fast I could run a mile. Because I think everybody has probably run a mile for time before, and everybody has a sense of what a good mile time is. And I was like, it'd be pretty cool if I could say that I could run a 5-minute mile. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go out. I'm actually going to hire a coach. So I hired a coach to go with me to a track to attempt to see where I currently stood to get a baseline. And after that first attempt, I ran a mile in 5 minutes and 6 seconds. And I was pretty proud of myself. I was like, I didn't really know what I could do. It's been a while, but I did it. And so I went to my coach and I was like, okay, you're more of the expert in this area. After 10 weeks, how far can I get this time down? I coach people in 10-week increments. I want you to come up with a plan for me to push this time down as far as it can be. So what do you think? And he said, well, I think you've got sub 5 minutes in the bag. I think 450 is going to be a really good goal for you. And I was like, yeah, but 445 just sounds so much better. So we went with 445. And so I trained really hard for the next 10 weeks. I ran 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, met him at the track 2 times a week, and I was posting about it and sharing about it with people. And then it got to the day of, and I had a few friends who were encouraging me, supporting me along the way to come and watch me make the attempt. And I remember it felt like before a high school football game. I had my headphones on, my warm-up jacket on, and I'm getting fired up and amped up. And then my coach comes up to me and says, all right, it's time. Step up to the starting line. And I took off the headphones, took off the warm-up jacket, got down and tightened my shoelaces, and I get up to the starting line, and holy crap, my heart rate is beating, ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And he says, ready, set, go. And I'm off. And I knew the biggest mistake that I could make was coming out of the gates too quickly. That's what happened sometimes when I was in training, where I would start too quickly and I would burn out. And so I was constantly focusing on the next stride. I was focusing on the rhythm of my stride, the rhythm of my breath, to make sure I didn't come out of the gates too hot. And in order to hit a 445, I would need to average about a 1 minute and 11 second lap. And so I'm coming right around that first lap, and I'm getting ready to hear what he's calling out. And so I cross it, and he says 1, 0, 9. And I'm like, okay, a little bit fast, but I think I'm okay. And then I get to the third lap, and by the third lap, my legs are feeling like tree trunks, like I am running through mud. But I remember getting past the third lap, and he called out my time. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, I'm on pace. I've got this thing, because my whole mindset going in was, if I can hit the third lap at the right pace, then I can just muster up the courage and the grit to really crush that last lap and do whatever I needed to do. But then I get to that final straightaway, and I've never felt the inability to find a fifth and sixth gear like I did when I was doing that last straightaway. And so I give everything I can. I get through the finish line, and I collapse immediately, just dead, panting as hard as I've ever panted before. And I'm laying there, and I say, "What'd I get?" And he comes up with a stopwatch, puts it right in front of my face, and I read 4:46. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." But then honestly, later that day and later that week, people were continually asking me, like, "Were you just so frustrated that you missed your goal?" And I was like, obviously, yes, I would have loved to hit that 1 second faster. But to be honest with you, that really wasn't what the goal was about. The goal wasn't about being able to run a 4:45 mile. The goal was about reinforcing to myself that I was the type of person who would attempt to do something that I've never done before. Reinforcing to myself that I'm the type of person who is disciplined to stick with a plan for 10 straight weeks. Reinforcing to myself that I'm the type of person who will follow through with the promises that I make to myself. Reinforcing to myself that I am a person of integrity. You see, the root of integrity is integer. What does integer means? It means whole. It means that you do what you say you're going to do. And so many of us, when it comes to our health and fitness goals, we set a goal based off of a number on a scale. We set a goal based off of what we are rather than who we are. But if we can set goals based off of becoming a type of person, that's going to allow us to stay consistent in the process, because sure, the result is nice to set in the first place, and we need to set the results, but we need to have a identity-focused approach to a results-oriented goal. So we want to make sure that we have an identity-focused approach to our goals in order to stay consistent. Second thing, in order to maintain health as a priority in our life as we go throughout day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year, is making sure that we prepare. Every single one of you guys are entrepreneurs. You would not go into an important meeting and not prepare. Yet you go into the week having no idea when you're going to get your workouts in. You go into the week having no idea what you're going to have for dinner on Monday night, yet Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday night. We need to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success and not relying on sheer discipline and willpower in order to execute these goals. I recently had a client who is getting really overwhelmed with work, both mentally and physically. And for the last 3 to 4 years after her promotion, she has had to, at least once a month, drive from Nashville to Memphis. And she has dreaded these days. I got emotional just listening to her and seeing the mental and physical fatigue that she had just talking about it. What she would do is she would wake up on, let's say, a Thursday morning, if that was her travel day, at 4 a.m., drive 3 hours to Memphis, work from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and then drive 3 hours back at 7 p.m. Later that day. And she was just mentally and physically exhausted. And she's trying to hit these goals in the program of hitting 8,000 steps a day, hitting so much protein and hitting so much fiber. And she's like, how am I going to get this done if I'm on the road the entire day and in meeting after meeting? And all she had to do was simply ask her boss earlier in the week, would you mind if I go on Wednesday and I get put up in a hotel? That way on Thursday morning, I can get up and work out and eat a healthy breakfast. And when I get back, I'm not so mentally and physically drained. And the boss was like, yeah, that's fine. I was like, you've got to stand up for yourself, because nobody else is going to stand up for you. While it would be nice for somebody to stand up for you and your health, you're the only person who has the ability to do that. And sometimes all it takes is a little preparation at the beginning of the week. It takes having a goal and then coming up with a plan in order to achieve that goal. You see, I think oftentimes we think that taking the time to decide how we're going to spend our future time is a waste of time, but it's actually your best use of your time. Plan ahead, not just in your business, not just in your finances, in your health as well. And then lastly, Ken talks so much about the 5 core target areas of health, business, finances, faith, and relationships. It's my opinion that in order to get closer to the best version of ourselves, we need to be managing all of those areas at any given point in time of our life. But we also can be spiking in one. And when I say spike, it means that you're dedicating more of your finite resources, your time, your energy, and attention in that area of your life so that you can achieve a big goal, so that you can eradicate a big frustration, or so you can learn and grow the most in that area of your life for a finite period of time. But here's the thing, you can only spike in one. We don't have the bandwidth to spike in multiple at the same time. That's why he's talked about so much how sometimes some of us put our heads down for 5, 10, 15 years and we crank out our business and our business is successful and our finances are booming, but then we look in the mirror and we're like, what the heck happened to our body? Or we're, again, grinding for 5, 10, 15 years and our relationship is broken. We need to ensure that we're always managing all of these areas of life at any given point in time. And look, I threw numbers at you earlier with the amount of protein, the amount of fiber, the number of resistance training and cardio and all that kind of stuff. But look, if you just had a kid or your business is going through turmoil, I don't care if you're hitting 120 grams of protein a day. Don't obsess about that. Do something. Do something. If you just had a kid and you're not able to lift 6 times a week, I don't care. Go on a couple more walks with your wife. Find some YouTube workouts that you can do 30 minutes 2 times a week. So many of us get so fixated on the routine that we did when we felt the best in our health. And we think that that needs to be our routine in every season of our life. And if that's not our routine, then we're not doing anything. You see, the all or nothing mindset, we often wear that with a badge of honor because if we're all in and we're crushing it and we're cruising. But the all or nothing mindset literally assumes that the other end of the spectrum is coming. And the other end of the spectrum is not going to leave you in a good point. If you neglect your health, the longer you neglect it, the more the severe the consequence is going to be. So ensure that you're able to refine your definition of success in the health area of your life based on the season of life that you're in. You guys, this is so important because when you're a healthier version of yourself, when you're a stronger, more energetic, more confident version of yourself, it impacts people. It does not just improve your life. So many of you guys out there raise your hands that you had kids. It impacts them in a huge way. And the ripple effect, we've already talked about it some today, the ripple effect of how you impact one person determines how they impact another person, which determines how they impact another person. And that rippling effect will go farther than you would ever know. And so we, every single day, have to take on the responsibility and the ownership that I'm going to do something today in order to progress in my health and fitness journey. Because look, it is your responsibility because you have a unique gift, you have a unique skill set, you have a unique personality, and the world is going to be a darker and a tougher place if you don't shine your unique light on it. And so every single one of you
need to, on a daily basis, figure out what prioritizing your health means to you. Because your family is relying on you, your community is relying on you, and better yet, the world is relying on you. They're relying on you to show up as the best version of yourself on a daily basis so that you can make the world a better and a brighter place. My video got cut off right at the end of my speech right there, so I wanted to add this in to finish it off, but I hope you guys enjoyed the speech there. If you have not yet subscribed to the Best You podcast, make sure you go to the Apple Podcasts app and Spotify and subscribe there. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well, but I hope you enjoyed the speech today, and I hope today helps you get closer to the healthiest version of yourself and ultimately closer and closer to your best you.